What is language? To understand it further, let's look at some of the definitions. Though these definitions have not been given for the purpose of definition, they are statements, but they do help us in understanding what is language. Purely human and non-instinctive. Language is a purely human and non-instinctive method of communicating ideas, emotions, and desires by means of voluntarily produced symbols. Sapir gave this definitions. If we look at this definition, we have certain keywords in this definition. Purely human. That's a very important key word. Non-instinctive and voluntarily produce symbols. But this definition suffers certain defects as well. If we look at the word idea, emotions, and desire, right? There is something more that languages convey. For example, if you look at the word idea, this word idea is vague or imprecise. What does it mean, right? So obviously emotions and desires are understandable, but ideas is something that that needs to be precisely defined. So we know that there are certain systems of voluntarily produced symbols. For example, body language, in which we voluntarily produce certain symbols. When we come on to purely humans, we do know that only human beings possess language, right? And their communication system is very different from the communication system of the animal. Animals do have a communication system. For example, if we look at the bees and bees dance, we all know that is a sort of communication system. The bees communicate each other about the place of the nectar. So they use a certain type of communication system. Similarly, if we look at birds, they use certain calls to attract each other's attention, to tell them that where a certain food can be found. And obviously, the songs of the birds, they are also communicating through their songs certain feelings. But language is species specific. When we come on to this next quality of this language, non-instinctive. What does it mean, non-instinctive? Obviously, non-inherited. It means that a certain language is not inherited by the parents to the child. We know that a certain language speaking parent do not take their children to another country, and the child learns the language of the country where he is or she is brought up. So it is not inherited. Language actually is learnt in a certain society. Language is society specific or convention specific. So voluntarily produce. Sapir excludes cries and groans from this definition of his language, that human language is purely non-instinctive. He does not include groans and cries because they are also voluntarily produced. So if we look at this definitions, we find that language is a means of human communication, a system of voluntarily produced symbols, and most of all, it is a non-instinctive method of communication. Human being can communicate on their own will it is not compulsion on them to communicate at any certain time, like other systems which are, when they are operated, have to make a communication. So in this definition, we at least have found that language is purely human, non-instinctive, and it's a method of communication. And this method of communication is different from the method of communication of the animals.